Hi everyone, I'm Katie Campione, a TV reporter at Deadline. Welcome to Deadline TV Contenders documentary and Unscripted. I'm joined today by the folks from Queens, a National Geographic documentary series that explores matriarchal animals in the wild. But this is not your traditional natural history series. It's an industry shifting moment for National Geographic and the genre at large, with a female led production team flipping the previously male dominated narrative on its head. From the peace-loving bonobo chimps of the Congo Basin to the ruthless jewel bees of Costa Rica to lionesses in the savannah, Queens tells stories of resilience, strength, love, and loss of females in the animal kingdom. With me today are showrunner Chloe Sarash, executive producer Vanessa Berlowitz, and director Faith Musembi. Before we dive in, let's watch a clip from Queens.
It's the prides that rule the crater. And by the prides, I mean the girls. 3 sisters. Just weeks ago, they left their mother to go it alone. And already, they're killing it.
I wanted to start, Vanessa, by just asking you how this series came about and what the inspiration for it was.
The series came about really after having worked in a very male-dominated industry for a long time and having a great conversation with another female executive, a commissioner at Nat Geo called Janet Han-Vissering. I started with just a single film idea, which actually became the Crater episode, the opening span of Queen's story, and saying, well, should we do this film, which looks at 2 great matriarchal societies, lions versus hyenas, and maybe feature the 2 women that have shot the most, who are also matriarchs within the industry, Justine Evans and Sophie Darlington. And the executive at Nat Geo said, we should do this as a whole series. And we kind of looked at each other and went, surely it's been done. And it hasn't. So it was just one of those great conversations between, I guess, 2 female senior leaders, just kind of realizing this was a huge content area that was fresh and exciting and hadn't been done. And also an opportunity to showcase female talent behind the scenes. And that's really then became sort of another parallel thing that I guess, Chloe, you can pick up on and talk about how we ran with that.
I mean, a project like Queens doesn't come along very often. It's a once in a lifetime, certainly once in a career, probably for me. But, women have been severely lacking in the wildlife space. Stories about female leadership on screen, women making the stories behind the scenes. And so to have a project where we could go looking for the best talent and then just sort of rip up the rule book about how we make a series like this and say, okay, it's been done this way for so long, well, why? And why couldn't it be done differently? And, we had a blast. I mean, it was messy at times and chaotic at times, but it always felt like a privilege. And to spend the time on location we did with these amazing animals telling their stories, just every time the rushes came back, something new and exciting, nuanced, dramatic. And we laughed, we cried. We just knew the series was something special very early on, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chloe, I'd love if you could expand on that a bit and how having a female creative team changed the way that you approached these animals and told their story.
Sure. Well, it's so genuinely exciting and rare to get to do something for the first time anyway. As Vanessa said, we couldn't quite believe it hadn't been done, but it hasn't, to focus on the animals, to actually turn the camera away from the things that usually wildlife shows focus on, which is the big manes and the big teeth and the fights and the hunts, and go, no, we're going to look this way. What are the females doing? What are they up to? What's the politics? What's going down? And as women, we couldn't help but draw parallels between what we were seeing in the wild and our own personal experiences. There was the line between them and us became almost completely blurred to sort of non-existence at times, because we saw time and time again, stories of the bonobo finding her place in the world that felt so like school to me, and just that time that we all go through when we're finding our tribe and our people, or the lioness sort of trading sexual consent to save her babies. Every day was either we were laughing and celebrating these females, or we were kind of crying with them. It was amazing. And we had a lot of fantastic men working on this project. They were allies that helped us. There just wouldn't have been enough women to make queens.
Yeah.
But I think just having that female energy around it just meant that fundamentally the storytelling was different. The way that we were seeing these animals, the lens from which we were looking was just different. And so the legacy is too, because now we have this phenomenal group of filmmakers who've proven that it can be done a different way. And they've made this beautiful series. I'm proud of the series. I'm even more proud of the legacy.
Mm-hmm. Faith, in terms of actually capturing the footage of these animals, what was the process like to figure out how to do that?
I think that's one of the fun parts of what we do, because and especially for a series like Queens, because we're having to consider filming animals from like the lions to the hyenas to the bears to the whales underwater, and to the tiny bees. And anytime you approach that, you're not going to have a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to think about what kind of kit will capture this to the best of our ability, and also what will get us in there. Because we, more than anything, we wanted the audience or anyone who watches us to really feel like you're right there with the bee. You're watching her fly away, like you're right in her world. So that influenced the kind of camera you use for something like that, the team you assemble for that. When you're filming underwater, there's considerations you have for that. And when you're filming elephants, because they're constantly moving and they're always walking, we needed cameras that would take you on that journey, so you're always flowing. And then something else that we have to think about as filmmakers is ethically, we don't want to go in there and kind of influence their behavior. So we're documenting from a very respectful place, but at the same time, we want you to feel like you're in there with them. So this it's an exciting opportunity to use kit that people always innovating kit to be able to capture all these moments, and then even the gift of being able to film in the dead of night, like we did for the elephants and the lions. That's we're capturing behavior that wouldn't otherwise have been seen were it not for the development of technology. So that was a fun bit, figuring out what kit's going to go where, what cameras we need, and what I suppose accessories are going to go along with the cameras to be able to help us do what we need to do and film what we'd like to film.
Was there anything that surprised you or challenged your beliefs about any of these specific animal matriarchs?
There's a scene in that African Queens, the first episode, when the Vanessa's alluded to, this hyena behavior that's rarely seen, let alone filmed. There's so many firsts in this series, but there's a moment where there are two sisters sort of vying for power, and one sister, she kills her own niece in order to take the crown, and we were there to film that. And there is no way that we would have filmed that moment if we'd been focusing on the male behavior, which would be in the hunts, the classic behavior, which would be hunt-driven. It was by just staying there, being with these animals, and the researchers told us something is happening, something is going on here. And it's really tough to watch, but it's incredible power politics play. And there's scenes like that all the way through. And for you, Faith, you got to know those elephants so well. There must be moments for you with the Ellies and the lions. My goodness, that scene under the Selex of the lions in that African Queens, the thermal camera. Amazing.
Yeah, I would say for sure the elephants. Elephants are just these incredible sentient beings. I've obviously got a very special soft spot for them. But I would say for me, the moment where it kind of had me going like, wait, what? Was on African Queens. There's a scene where this female kind of tricks this male to believe that the cubs are his. And this is something that we'd read about, we'd heard happens, but then it's one of those things where you go like, really, like did she really trick him? But then seeing it kind of play out was actually remarkable and unbelievable, and realizing the extent to which it played out, because it didn't happen like that. It was calculated. It happened systematically over a period of time. But that just, it blew my mind, because I've spent time filming lions before, but I'd never seen that, and to see that happen and for us to be able to capture it like we did, that's just incredible.
How long did it take to capture all of the footage for Queens?
Queens took 4 years to make from beginning to end. COVID played into that, of course. We all like to pretend that didn't happen anymore. We've sort of, PTSD of that year. So we lost quite a good chunk of that for filming, but probably, 2.5 years of filming, because animals don't follow scripts as much as we would love them to. So we had all these plans for this high drama, and we knew the behavior was out there. But sometimes you go and nothing happens, and sometimes you go in something that you couldn't have even dreamt of, like that lion behavior or the hyena behavior, or the orchid bee happens. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It's painstaking.
Was it 1,800 days, Chloe? 1,800 days?
Wow.
Yeah.
1,800 days in the field. Yeah.
Which is, that is just persistent, relentless pursuit of newness, new stories. That, as we said, just surprised us. I've been working in the industry 30 years on, big shows like Planet Earth and Frozen Planet and lots of stuff with David Attenborough. And I was skeptical at first. I thought, is there really going to be anything new? And every show has a first. Every show has a surprising behaviour. I mean, even something we started to realise was going on was this push-pull between being a leader and a mother. And it's something I think many of us in our team identified with. But to then see the behaviours that were coming out of that, like in our mountain show, where we have an older queen who basically has to make a heartbreaking decision between ensuring the future of her troop and her daughter's opportunity to have a mate, and actually sacrifices her own opportunity to have her next offspring. And, that's a very, very powerful moment when she effectively self-aborts. Mm-hmm. We didn't know this happened. We never really documented this before. So every show, I think, because of that 1,800 days in the field and the years, has revealed something new and fresh.
Have you begun to formulate ideas for how to expand the series?
Oh, yes. Chloe.
Well, it was hard enough to choose just 6 films and then obviously face incredible kind of behind the Queen's film at the end. So we could do it over again. But also science moves on, and I think as more women come into the field and we begin to see that the assumptions we've made about leadership and about the structures of animal societies perhaps weren't what we thought they were. So there are endless stories. But I think also just the way we make these films, working with local talent. Faith will be, she won't blow her own trumpet. We needed, that dial needed to shift. And we really hope that Queens, aside from always pushing for better footage, always pushing for brilliant storytelling, always pushing for something new and exciting for our audience, something relatable, something that reaches new audiences too, we're also saying that there are new ways to make these films, and with new voices, new talent behind the scenes in country, telling their own stories. Faith, I mean, you can speak to how important that is for you personally, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, I'm a producer, but working on something like Queens, a premium show of this level, up until Queens would have at best been a pipe dream, kind of something you envision and hope that one day you might be able to do, probably won't be able to do. But I mean, because that's just how inaccessible it was to work in this industry. And moving forward with where we are, as where the planet is, we just need so many people working, different voices, different perspectives, telling these stories, because we all need to be trying to figure out how do we get ourselves out of the situation we're in with our climate deteriorating like it has, and just being in the place that it is. But even beyond that, I was thinking about this the other day. There's just something to be said for being included, feeling included in a world, up until recently, as speaking in generalities, as women, there's certain things we weren't allowed to do. And then, you always are always on the outside looking in, but there's this beauty where when your voice is heard, when you're allowed a seat at the table. And not just that, I always say this about the Queen's team is us as local and diverse voices weren't just allowed a seat at the table, but the team kind of gave us the tools to build our own tables, which is just so important. Because when we're not trying to say this is the only way we want to do this, like the Queen's way, we're saying there are different ways to do this, and here are the tools for you to explore the different ways that you can tell these stories. And I think that's so important, because that's the main thing, is just the difference in trying to tell these stories, and involving as many different looking sounding people as possible.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here to talk about Queens. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's joining for this conversation.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Katie.
Katie.